Welcome everybody to Life Coach Labs. I'm your host, Chris Angel. And hey, this is our kickoff inaugural episode and season with special guest, Kate Pinter. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Chris. It's so good to see you.
I'm so excited to hang out with you for a bit.
Yeah.
I think what's exciting for me about this show, I've done a lot of podcasts in my days. I had an agency that did podcasts, done a lot of my own, but the focus of Life Coach Labs is to bring topics that I think are important to the industry and to coaches, and then do seasons, or what I'm calling labs, that basically break down a topic for, let's say, 4 episodes, 6 episodes, and that becomes a season. What we're kicking this whole show off with is the conversation of leadership. The lab we're going to focus on for the next several episodes is leadership. And the reason I wanted to talk to you, Kate, is because you have this brilliant ability to see the big picture, but also work from an operational standpoint. Like, you have this unicorn ability to do both. And I think I'm curious to explore with you where the industry is going, what you see in the future for life coaches, life coaching, and then maybe how do we accommodate that as coaches? How do we align ourselves as coaches towards that future? Yeah. But before we do that, can you just, I would love to hear just a little bit of like who you are so people can be related to.
Yeah, for sure. So I live on the Lost Coast in Northern California. I've heard I'm great with lost people. So it's really
the Lost Coast.
Somehow I ended up here in Humboldt County. I've
Nice.
been up here for almost 3 years. I'm married.
Wow.
My amazing husband, Matthew. We have a 6-year-old together and also 4 grown children from previous marriages. And so we're going to be grandparents for the first time.
Wow.
In April this year. So it's I've been thinking a lot about legacy in the life coaching industry.
Wow.
Like, I feel like my season of life, I love labs. Like I love how you're structuring your show, because it's just so aligned with so many things. But I think about I would just say use the word legacy in terms of thinking what's happening in the industry. And I'm noticing so many people that went into the coaching industry knowing that marketing has made it like commoditize something that was really sacred. And that feels disgusting to a lot of us.
Yep.
And so to build their businesses up until now, many coaches were willing to sacrifice their own growth. They were willing to burn out, they believing the experts, chasing the dollar, trying to find some way. And that always takes them away from how it was fulfilling, from their highest work delivery, which is what that scalable model takes you out of. And so I think people are frustrated with that. And so I think you're going to see, like right now, people looking to do more interdependent containers like you're offering.
Yeah. And you're offering.
And like, yeah, and what I'm offering as well. And so one thing that's really fascinating is, so I'm a strengths coach, to tell you about my background. And so strengths, meaning Gallup created this assessment based on 50 years of research with Donald Clifton. It's really well known. When I started, there were only like 7,000 of us. And now there's like tens and tens of thousands of coaches around the world. Technically, I'm about 17,000 hours in. So I'm in the top 5%. Of those. One of my mentors was mentored by Marcus Buckingham, who was the founder. And I've enjoyed this language around people, like even in terms, whether it's life coaching, business coaching. The data they came out with last year around how management is changing has been that all managers now need to become coaches because of what's occurred during the pandemic. So I see this massive opening where we've called it life coaching, but now if coaching is acceptable, and vulnerability is something we can talk about in the workplace and be more conscious in these businesses, I see a wide open lane for people who are ready to add some skills and are ready to, shape the future. Like maybe we don't even have managers in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Because all of those were just people who also had lives and were impacted in the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be managed anymore. So I think those that have learned to coach and ask amazing questions are on the precipice of a massive shift, very profitable, so much impact, and a brand new legacy based on how work is changing. I'm curious what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, well, I have 2 specific thoughts. One was we talk about like how untapped the human potential is.
Yeah.
And you think about how the Industrial Revolution brought people in at the lowest common denominator of competency to work a line in a factory or whatever.
Right.
And that's where management was born. Like come in, manage the people, manage the process. In fact, even the E-Myth from Michael Gerber was all about like, how do you create a process, right? It's the process that runs the business and the people run the process. And so your capacity to expand was only capable of the way your process could expand, but processes aren't built like that. Processes don't have human ingenuity. So I love your point, because I think management is old school.
Yeah.
Coaching is new school. Coaching taps into that human potential and gets beyond the process for sure.
Yeah. And when you make we make our lives better, our work is better. And if you're working with people who didn't develop a life while they were working, it's, the whole ecosystem.
Especially with people getting tired of, I mean, you can see it right now with the great, what do we call this? The great resentment, or the great, I can't remember what we're calling this right now, but like, where there's a lot of jobs available, but nobody's willing to take the job. We're like, I'm not, I would rather struggle than be subjected to overbearing work conditions or whatever. So we've been in the gig economy for a while now.
Yep.
A lot of people are gigging. A lot of people are trying to figure out, how do I do my own side hustle? Even language like that. These things are getting birthed out of people trying to find an outlet that compensates for or helps to transition to their own thing. So I really think like, if I look out into the future, more and more people are going to try to find their own independent thing. And for people like in our tribe who've always wondered about coaching, are good with people, love are great listeners, are great empathy people, coaching is such a great fit.
Yeah, it is. It's such a great fit. And I think I work with a lot of therapists in my coaching practice, who are learning to coach.
Yep.
Because there's like, do we believe in post-traumatic growth? Even that's like one of the questions that come out, like, what is post-traumatic growth?
Yeah.
And, in our journeys, and where am I standing on somebody's whole journey? Then what else is possible? And people right now, especially with, the news media and everything that's happened, if they're only tuned into that reality and they're not accessing that unconscious reality, they're going to need guides and when they start unplugging from that reality, there's such a dark night of the soul there. Like everybody, like 21-year-olds are in an existential crisis right now. Like unplug me from the matrix, but they need guides for this process. People who understand that whole journey, not just in this plane of reality, but also what's happening for them unconsciously. And like the younger millennials, zennials, they're hip to that already. They know they have to transform, that they're going to have to learn it. But at those younger ages, they are not able to embody it yet because they don't have the same life experience. Right. So I see it also, like, who are the coaches able to be patient and hold that unconditional love, almost this way of being, that we are mentoring that next generation and letting our legacy walk out through them with more collaboration and more interdependence. And because they already know they're going to have to grow. So different than our generation. We were like, our lives hit some kind of wall, and we're like, I guess I better grow myself.
Right. Yeah.
With them, they're like, we grow ourselves in order to do this vision. And they're already aware of the inner game. You never have to open that.
So cool.
So, yeah.
My kids are 15 and 17, and like, they are light years ahead of where I was at 15 and 17. Like the thoughts they have, the conversations they have, the empathy they have, all of it. I'm just like, you guys are incredible.
Yeah.
So amazing. I was thinking about, the other day about how everybody has, I mean, if you have insurance, you're in some ways required to have a primary care physician in order to get a referral to a specialist or anything. Like it's almost like every person has a primary care physician. Right. And I just thought, like, well, what if everybody had a life coach? Like, is there a world in which everybody has a life coach?
That's
like
my dream.
Like, it would make sense. We can't do for ourselves what others typically can do for us, because we just can't see in our own fishbowl. Like what if everybody what if that was the new norm? Wouldn't that be amazing? I love that.
We can't see in our own fishbowl. That's genius. Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, even if you were the most evolved person, you can't see what you can't see. There are all the blind spots that you can't see, but and that's why I love Ram Dass's quote, like, we're all just walking each other home. Like at some level, there is a respect and an honor and I honor you and you honor me relationship to coaching and client, versus, to your point about marketing, like there's so much pedestal, the way marketers are coming in and experts are coming in, and it's positions the coach as the I know and you don't know, and you need my premium program to like, there's just it's too old school and too manipulative to me it doesn't honor the person in their journey. So
Right.
I love the idea. I
Love
as a
that.
life coach and the life coach, we're just walking each other home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's space for guides. And like I think back and like churches filled a hole for that in my childhood. Like there was a
Sure.
level
Yeah.
of like we
Right.
believe, like there was
Yeah.
mentoring and like, people, but limitedly, like not in psychology, not to discern like what healthy
Yeah.
spirituality is by
Yeah.
any means. But there was this sense of I need to be plugged into something. I haven't replaced that completely in my life,
Yeah.
although my spirituality path has shifted. I think
Yeah.
God got a lot bigger for me.
Yeah.
And so that, I mean, if I just simplify it in that one way. So recognizing that this is still a part of my well-being, there's always a connection to community. That's a part of
Right.
our well-being. We're designed for each other, like to support, like we are God with each other.
Yeah.
And so allowing, like one of my programs is called Into the Looking Glass, because it's like a commitment to let people mirror for you in community. And how do we, and that just that one thing, if you can get somebody to acknowledge they need those mirrors, they're going to do the trauma work, they're going to do the healing work, they're going to explore spirituality because they recognize that connection, maybe even for the first time in their life.
Wow.
Which is so powerful for people because we kind of keep each other out. And look at our society now.
Right.
Life coaches can't have the opportunity to birth these types of communities where we're journeying with each other, not in a hierarchy of like,
Right.
because I've learned some things, but as people who are modeling that openness, authenticity plus maximum connection.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think we move from a place of the expert industry to a place of holding space and
Right.
providing safe passage for our journey. It's like, to your point of guides, we're becoming guides more than we are experts, like if I think about somebody who is, well, let me say it this way. One of my thoughts about leadership lately has been, if we are all spiritual beings having a minor physical experience,
Right.
we are all on the cutting edge, leading edge of consciousness. Like there is consciousness if we believe that we've embodied this form or this lifetime. We're all the tip of the spear on consciousness. Like it hasn't been done yet. We're writing it all, like every single human alive on this planet, whether they know it or not. That's probably part of the problem is we forget who we are in all of it. And so we just take what we get. But if we could, as a leader, shift our thinking to like, we're all creating what's next.
Yes.
And so the expert industry is sort of smoke and mirrors because nobody's an expert on where we're headed because nobody's been there yet. We're all going there together.
I love that.
I think that just changes.
We are going there together. And so it's like, we really are. And we need better frameworks and better ways of organizing ourselves and uniting together and collaborating together and learning to collaborate so that we can create that legacy.
Right. Yeah. What do you see? I'm curious because it kind of brings up the conversation of containers.
Yeah.
I do think that, because you're so good at both the vision and the operations of things, like I do believe containers are important because they hold the space for the transformation. They hold the space for the journey. We've come out of a season where a lot of it was webinars and YouTube videos. But I think now people are numb to information. It's information overload. So what do you see moving forward into the future for containers that
you're going to laugh at this?
Okay.
Because like I have even though I've done so much learning and design development with, coaches and all of that, because I love that stuff. And I started in marketing way back in the day. And so it's creative for me to create the containers and design those. However, for my programs, I decided the relationship is the container. And so we deliberately don't provide that so that people can see their impact and see very clearly what's happening or not happening. And it forces them to co-create it. And they're like, the sky is the limit, because I recognize in all of our lives, that's just something that's missing. We're like, you create that. And if I like it, I'll participate.
Right.
If it's designed for me, because I don't learn like that. So I immediately put it. So it's almost like it's born from the cohort that's there. So it's different every time.
What is born, the relationship or the
The
container?
container, it's because it is the conversation, it is the relationship. If we're talking about, like, this is for transformation, actually.
Yeah,
So,
right.
like, we're here to transform and learn how to belong. Like, this, one of my programs called the Relief is like, we're here to learn to belong. How do we belong to each other? What are my conditions for belonging?
I love that.
So in that, and they basically understand, like, the universal human paradigm, which is there's a way things should be, and I need to adapt myself or change or shift my behavior to be in line with that, or so that happens, or so that something doesn't happen. And this is like our journey in our 20s and 30s is so much of that. I find that people, like, into their 40s, it's like we integrate a little bit. We're like, I'm going to make my own way to do it. But in that place of like, okay, so what's here? I'm creating, my creativity can be here. What are my ideas for that? And I find we just have to model that differently, so they can then go out in their life and go make that after they've been with us. They're never going to think it through again when they're in a team, in a group, in a community.
I can't think of any life coach that would disagree with that statement. I think we're all relationship based. I think we value the relationship. I think the challenge, if I put my business hat on, then goes, how do I invite people into the container called relationship and try to create a landing page that says you're going to get these 5 things and this is why this is really valuable to you, and trying to justify your investment in a relationship. You'd be like, well, I don't need that. I'll just get my own relationship. So with your marketing hat on and your leadership hat on, like, how, what do we do about that? How do we justify?
I think there is something that's really hard to describe. When, like, even for you with your mastermind and all these beautiful communities you've built, there's something magic that happens there. It's very hard to communicate, because it happens in the synergy and the connection, what's there. So in the marketing, knowing that happens, and we can't say that at the forefront because people won't click to cart.
Right.
Because those are the outcomes we can't, it's like, it's intangible. Even though they want the intangible, that's the real ROI. But then it has to be tied to whatever it is they're growing. So the women I have in my group right now are building empires of some kind. And so they want to develop their leadership, and they want to understand people, and they really want to understand people better. So they're coming in, I want to see my impact with others. So I don't know what we're going to do, but I'm going to come in and experience myself and my leadership as it is. Another thing that works, and I'm doing this because I don't have any horses. I used to run this program on a horse ranch. Cool. Because the horses just do that, like that somatic experience. If you can do it, with an equine program, it's instant feedback, right? And it really helps you to see yourself and whether your energy is working or not. So I like to create experiences around that. And I think those will still be the containers, but I'm super curious with Meta coming out and some of these other things, which I have like resistance to. And also I will probably see how I can maximize, the impact. I probably will try it. I have an Oculus.
I mean, in the name of connection, in the name of, like, I've had this thought, like, we do Zoom, this very 2-dimensional, I'm looking at you, you're looking at me thing, but there is something about being in each other's presence, body language, the whole thing, that just feels different. And I wonder if virtual reality, in-person meetings where we can somehow
I'll come with you. If your group does it, I will come.
I mean, it's that kind of a thought that would lead me to step into Meta and try to find a way to carve out my own space of connection for people, Well,
and like nervous system regulation, like we can't ignore our bodies. Like in this, like so much of Zoom, we're intellectualizing, we're talking about things from the neck up. It's like there's so much happening in our full body. And if they're successful online as a coach, their body will burn out. Like it's not healthy for us to even be functioning as a business. We have to keep changing the ergonomics. And so, like, I hope that we find some hybrid, ways of doing this together, because it's, we need to think in terms of we're all plants as well. Like,
I think when we all, there's something about, let's think vibrationally for a minute. And we all, the volume of vibration that gets broadcast spills out into our societies, our cultures, our communities, et cetera. If the vibration the last couple of years has been pretty tense, what's been coming out of people's broadcasts from fears about COVID and mask regulations and things about Black Lives Matter. And like, we really could go through the whole there was an election that was very controversial. Like, we could go through all of this, and the vibration that's been going has spilled out, and it's affecting how people hold their energy. So one of my thoughts then in the context of leadership is, when what brings change for us valuing relationship, rather than relationship being this ambiguous, like, I don't know, is that really what I need? I think I needed knowledge, not relationship. What changes that is when we as coaches continue to broadcast the value of, the importance of, the missing of relationship. And it's us being the stewards of, reminding humanity that we're a cooperative species, and what makes us expand is being in relationship with other people. And that what we as coaches are doing are creating, to your point, new experiences, elevated experiences for connection, rather than the old school experience of interacting with each other. Like a church is a great example, because in the church, you just pick a church and you hope you pick the right one, but at some point you're in, and whoever shows up is who shows up, and you can't really filter that very well. But as coaches, we are curators of our own tribes, our own communities, and so people can have a better fit. In that relation. Anyway, I feel like I'm spewing a little bit, but
there's one of the things that I tune into in, even within the coaching community, as we're still breaking up with this pedestal mentality from the early 2000s when the industry started. And so, like, I'm not your guru, like Tony Robbins, like thing, like people have this, they're still idolizing the people that seem to, whether it's lifestyle coaching or any of those things, and like taking down the pedestal. If we just do that, and we have more transparency, and we shift, and like, we're not in the expert, we're in the, like, life coaches should be embracing their humanness and coming to terms with how do I manifest presence and non-judgment in my life, so that I can have some of those other conversations, and creating, I find you to be somebody who creates spaces where they can have all those other conversations too. So that's exciting for your people, because it's so rare, because of how much masking and and also the mental health. Like, we did some research with one of my clients, the Society for Social Health, at the end of 2019, and we were looking at the loneliness epidemic in the entrepreneurial world, where and the research was nuts. Like, and so, like, how do we meet that also of the silos that emerge? You're giving your heart out, to your clients, you're growing your business in that, but people are having a very difficult time. And this was prior to the pandemic. So we're seeing mental health of our coaches, and them needing other tools and other support to be able to continue to deliver their gift. So it's just like, I have, like, let's say that not with a level of despair, but just like this is an issue that those of us who have been in the game for a while, we need to roll the carpet out and name some of these things that are occurring, and so that we're building more authentic community around the real challenges of serving in this capacity.
If we looked at, like, let's look at where you see life coaching is today, and then maybe we can transition to where you see it going. But like, I think you're pointing to sort of the condition of the industry right now. Like, there's a lot of life coaching. If we look at, if you just go do like a Google keyword phrase of life coach, and you look at the trend over years, like, it's skyrocketed. And
not a dirty word anymore.
Right.
When we started, people were like, you're a life coach, like,
life coach, that's lame. Right.
Now people are tagging me, that's my life coach.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a good sign, right? It's a good sign. Like, it's becoming culturally acceptable and normal, just like just like cell phones, where at one point you're like, oh, how arrogant, that person's got a briefcase for a phone and they can take it anywhere they go. And now it's just, it is what it is. Like everybody has a cell phone. and anyway, so, but to your point, like, there's a lot of people who have gotten into coaching. One, because there's, and this may be a part of the condition of it right now, there's very low barrier to entry.
Right.
We saw this in real estate, because that's my background is real estate. And it's higher in real estate even than it is for life coach. Like in real estate, you at least have to do 90 hours and go through a bunch of stuff that doesn't actually matter to your real estate career, like riparian rights. But there's a very low barrier to entry for life coaching. And then now there's people who are probably not equipped to be business people because it's not what they were trained to do. They just wanted to help people, and they wanted some autonomy and some freedom. And now they're lonely because of the epidemic. So like, what else do you see about the condition that our industry is in right now?
Yeah, I think so. People who want to get started, there's, it's really fascinating. So deciding to be a coach, and, most of the time people are, I've learned something, I've had a shift or a change, and now I want to start talking about that change and what I've learned. And like, there's nothing new under the sun to me. It's like, it's all like, we're just regurgitating, but you find somebody who resonates with you or their story resonates, right? And there's a lot of wounded healers out there,
right.
Which is okay. I'm probably one too. I just don't like the term. And so just don't call me that. But yes, I am. And so in that layer of like, anyone can get started, but also in presenting yourself, the game is up. It costs more to get started now than it did when we got started, because we did meetup groups. Well, now you can't do meetup groups because it's impossible. So like all of the models that we used, like I made 6 figures in my first year because I already had a network, and I was really clear on what I was standing for. And then there was just a lot of referrals that came because I networked in my local community, similar to real estate. And I was partnered with Master Networks and some other things. And it was fantastic because we were really serving and building relationship. That's always the model that I think helps people more confidently start online, is if they gain that local respect and are in real conversation with people. So getting started now, people, if you're just starting in online, there's a higher cost to getting started because all of these skills that people are missing. So that business model piece becomes really significant. And people don't know what they don't know. So they don't even know the mindsets that they need in order to establish the business side, which is really the majority of the time is going to be your content. Like you're going to do clients for a piece, and then and it's not really scalable. So like people have to really get clear as they're starting, how they're going to design healthy relationships with their clients and all of those pieces. And there's like the coaching academies that are out there are lacking that type of integrative understanding. It's not holistic.
Right.
It's like you need to have these competencies, and now you're a coach, and you can do it like with Gallup. I mean, 4 days and they're passing these certificates out. Well, I did 18 months for my first one, 18 months for my second one. I had to have 100 hours turned in with my mentor. It was a much more, I don't know. It was a higher road I had to count for him to say I was ready to go. And the trainings aren't doing that. So I'm also hoping to see like more integrative communities where people can continue to grow that skill and establish those client relationships. And have more support to get off the ground. So that they can do it. That's kind of like the state of the union I feel right now. They're not prepared for what it's going to be.
Yeah, right. Not prepared.
Yeah.
Not prepared.
My dream for the future is that folks like yourself, that we probably know a lot of people out there also, that maybe we create something integrated where there's incubators for them just to grow as they go. And here's more tools without like, go do these 10 steps. They're never going to be able to do those 10 steps. They're going to be in perfectionism, not launching whatever that is. So can we create interdependent communities where it's okay that the tools are there as that need evolves? That's what I think we're going to need to be able to make that shift.
I think I mean, it's funny every time you're sharing, I'm like, I got like 5 different things I want to say off of things.
Yeah, do it.
Like, oh, I can't even remember them all. They just come through too fast. I'm like, man, I need to earmark all these. I'm going to come back and listen again because I'm like, there's so much, and maybe it's a sign of the industry itself because it is so young, it is so new, but there's so many implications for, I think, what we as leaders need to be thinking about moving forward. And what I often see with practitioners, and we could say coaches, our practitioners. Like what we do is people come in, especially if we deal with trauma, if that's the kind of
Right.
coaching we do, we over-identify with our practice. So I think what I do is I'm a trauma coach, or I'm a person who deals with this. And so what happens is because I over-identify with that as my identity, it's harder for me to put a leadership hat on and think into the future of, well, what else does the industry need? What do my clients need?
Right.
Because we're so focused on the moment of trauma and getting people to the other side. But to your point earlier, as a guide, I think we don't coach people to just get them unstuck. We coach people for the joy of life they're trying to create.
Right. Right.
And most of us as practitioners are only dedicating ourselves to the beginning of their journey, the client journey, and not the fun part.
Right.
What comes after trauma? What did you call it?
Post-traumatic growth.
Post-traumatic growth. Exactly. Like raise your sights and look beyond the moment that people come for the healing of things and get to the creation of things.
I love that. Like the reason I'm so like, this is like the thing I'm most passionate about is so, I mean, you know this about me, but in 2013, I completed over 10-year, well, it's not done, but I completed a 10-year stint with reflex sympathetic dystrophy, which is the highest pain limbical index, and it was full body.
Wow.
So I was in and out of the hospital for 10 years, like a health crisis, barely could walk, needed help going to the bathroom, wow. All the way down into, they weren't sure if my organs were shutting down or what was happening. And so I started that at 27. And so what that taught me in that journey, and then where I am now, which I'm in remission now, and I have all the tools to navigate somatically in my nervous system and understanding what the root cause was, that how do emotions impact that. And so the way I was running up until that point, without having any understanding, I was using this, like my genius, I would say, and I was fixated on getting out of pain, trying to create safety because of so many traumas that had occurred. Right. And I discovered that when I aimed that power, when I understood that I had this gift and what that was and aimed that out, I was ready for a coach. But it took a coach to say, hey, there's some, to speak into that blind spot of possibility, because there's no way that I could see or even understand that there was any life beyond here, because a doctor had told me this is going to be your life. I'm really sorry, but you're never going to walk fully again. And you're, so these beliefs and this identity that I had collapsed my identity with my trauma. Wow. And was going to make the most of it. I started nonprofits. I spoke around the country. And then I recognized I could not get well in that container. I couldn't get well in a sick community, because they're, I believe we also want to be sick. Gets us out of a lot of stuff, even though I know it's like, it sounds like I'm bypassing, but it's like, for me, that was one of the things my coach had said. How are you using this? What is it getting you out of? Right. And so I had to do a year of ketamine infusions, rerouted my brain. It was like a reboot. It's amazing. And then went into remission, a health program, had a baby, which sealed the deal. My body restored. Wow. And I am living in post-traumatic growth, but it was but there's like this massive shift. I want every life coach, anyone who's deciding to be a guide, I want them to get out of that wheelchair, whatever it is, to figure out what is the thing so we can massively reinvent. And then we are possibilitarians. Then we're the people who can see in the future. But you do have to have this radical shift. It's not like personal growth just as a lifestyle. What is the transformation that will continue to fuel you through all of those things and help you cast possibility and open the heavens for people? I love Sorry, that. I'm like, super
no, yeah, I know. I love it. I feel like, because there's something about I think maybe this is why leadership as a topic has been interesting to me recently, because what I feel like I'm bumping up against is a noticing that as coaches, it's common as humans, but then we'll just like overlay that with coaches. It's common to pick up a practice and then do that practice in the existing container. So if the existing conversation or cultural agreement is, Western medicine is king, and or whatever, or our political structure is the way it's always going to be. So we just have to get used to living in the political structure the way it is. None of that comes from possibility thinking. And the very people, life coaches, who I believe are the ones who should be casting vision for and leading us into post-traumatic growth, some growth beyond the way it is. If we're going to do that, we as coaches have to stretch the container, stretch the perspective, the paradigm beyond the way it is. Like, and I think too many of us are coming in just going, well, who am I? There's this, like, we feel very small in a big world because most of us have always been misfits. And so we're like, well, who am I to challenge the way it is? Somebody with bigger personality should challenge it. Or whatever. But until we own that we are the ones who will create that change, we'll continue to do our practice inside the existing container.
Agreed. And like, also, I love how you said somebody with a bigger personality, because there is like a charisma and a confidence that kind, you know, people are paying attention because you have the charisma and the confidence of that. I want all of those introvert coaches who are so great, you know, they're so awesome at space holding and they have profound, wise things to say. I want, like, we need to hear from them. We need to hear from them. There's so the people who still feel invisible, like those coaches need to come out front. They are leaders. They are seeing things that are missed in the swirl of influence, you know, in this community. I think it's a time for I hope there's another platform that's not the Book of Faces. And, you know, like where can we go that we're not even trying, we're in bed with this nastiness of humanity. Can we create some other place also in the future where people can have that healing, like a whole different ecosystem?
Because you
do it, Chris, you do it, and I will sign up.
Well, we can all do it. We can all walk each other home on that one. It's people trying to see if I can grab that thought. If we don't change the container, if we don't wear the hat of leadership that says, well, I mean, you know, I'm going to be the change I want to see in the world, until we can say as a coach, I am leading. Here, I think here it was. If you can't find your own vision, which I think a lot of coaches struggle with, because they would say things like, my strength is not vision, or I'm not a visionary person, but that's not true. The soul is expansive. So everybody has a soul and the soul is expansive. So if you stop trying to compare, what's that?
Your soul is speaking.
Yeah. If you stop trying to compare your vision to somebody else's vision and then judge your vision, if it's right or not, based on it's not big enough or it's too big, you know, whatever. If you just listen to your soul and you start to feel into what does the world look like? I call it your premise. When blank happens, the world will change. How would you fill that in? When blank happens, the world will change. That starts to capture in one line the fingerprint of your important work here. Like if you said, I've had people say, when people exchange anger with love, the world will change. When kids are empowered, the world will change. Like there are these big, beautiful things. And from that, if you said, like, when kids are empowered, the world will change. Okay, well, now let your soul go there. What does that look like to you? What does that mean for schools? How would schools be different? How would parenting be different? How would kids being born be different? How would pre-marriage counseling be? Like, but you got to let yourself go there. And that's a leadership thing. Right. That's a willingness to trust your own leadership of, like, I see something and I'm going to go there and I'm going to invite others in. I'm on the leading edge of consciousness. Nobody's done this before. There is no expert to tell me how to do this. I'm doing this. Yeah, it's so good. I love the passion behind that. There's a level, we're abdicating responsibility when we don't do that. This is like, they're the leaders of this. I'm just working with these people over here. We are each responsible. We each have a stake at it. We can't abdicate the responsibility that we have, each of us. I mean, that's obviously one of those, the global problems, but there's wherever our competencies are and the places that we feel most secure, that's what people tend to, return to, the familiar. Like, I know how to do this, and that's that. And stretching into that vulnerability of where, because then, like, if somebody isn't dreaming, like as a coach yourself, like if you see somebody struggling to see the future, what does your brain tell you that's occurring for them when they're not able to envision? Usually it's there's some despair and some longing that's been unmet, and I haven't processed my emotions about past events, or I'm premeditated disappointments, and
And so we have to still do that. I call it, this is funny because I'm holding a coffee cup right now, but you ever drink a cup of coffee and like the bottom of it, it's cold now. Like that's what I'm experiencing right now. So it reminded me of this metaphor. And it's like, it's cold, it's bitter. And for so much of our journey, we're just like, we'll just go pour a new cup and dump that out. We, in this new era of coaching, we need to become people who sit with people while they finish the cup, because it's going to store up. It's like that doesn't flush down the toilet. It's actually going to still be there tomorrow, and it's going to grow. So can we sit with people and finish that cup all the way down to the bitter?
Ooh, that makes me think. That just unlocks something for me when I think about the future of coaching. So there's a lot of coaching that is sold in packages, X amount of sessions, 6 sessions, 10 sessions, 12 months of sessions. But there is something about a finite, let's start, let's finish. And I think for us to sit with people while they finish their cup, it's not, you finish the cup and then we pour another cup, because the first cup you finish with me might be getting past the trauma, healing the trauma, getting to wholeness. But the second cup we pour is, now what? And now that you're past the trauma, post-traumatic growth, now what do you want to drink? Now let's drink something different. And I'll sit with you while you finish that cup. And then
we can't just be in their pain. We need to be in their dreams, especially right now. You got to be people who can do both. It can't just be, that's what I love, like the strengths philosophy of leadership of like, let's look for also what's working. So when I come in to train coaches, it's usually that, like, I'm listening to coaches, we're always focused on the past or the goal or those things. And it's like, well, what's working, what you focus on, you're going to get more of. So let's also get great at giving praise, great at seeing, at fanning the flames of people's dreams and fanning the flames of their curiosity. What they're curious about is going to create that future.
What is from where you sit, what is the strength of the coaching industry, and what can we do more of in the coaching industry to amplify what's working?
Oh, let's think about this for a second. What is the strength of the coaching industry? I think the coaching industry is fantastic at enrolling people into possibility, whatever that is. I think there's been great normalization of anxiety, of like overwhelm. There's like amazing tools and all of that. Like the trauma informed movement of the last 3 years has been really profound. That's a strength. I think more people are doing nervous system work. We're having more integrated. So I love this evolution of the coaching industry now. And I think there's more holistic focus, despite how the marketing is going. I think people are coming to terms with that and offering, instead of like a very specific place, there's more integration happening, which is beautiful. I think also for some, like I think I hang out with Arthur Levitan, Master Arthur, the Tao monk, and I think we're moving to a teaching model. So like we're teachers and guides. Again, we used that language before, and less about follow me. Here's my amazing life. Like that. I think that's expiring, and we're ready for deeper conversations through there. If I used Gallup language for some of that, you can see people who are like high futuristic, catching that dream. I think we're great relationship builders. And strategic thinkers, really dominant in those. And then there are some coaches who are high in influencing themes that need a very different kind of container. So those oftentimes will create a more scalable model because they don't have the patience to sit. And so you have your disrupt. They really want to paint. They want people to actually have and those are more the executors, if that makes sense. So they're like dropping specific bread. Here's they're not satisfied if people aren't really doing it. And that's a whole other grounded type of coach. It's not like you bought my system or here's the ideas of that, but they won't give up on those people, or they'll continue to make tools because they want to see people actually get to where they wanted to go.
That's a really interesting thought to think of. When I think of the DISC profile, for example, I think of people are drawn based on your behavioral style. You're drawn to a particular type of work, if you're people oriented, you're typically drawn to people oriented work. If you're task oriented, you're drawn to task oriented work. If I think about the Strengths Finders, how many, 35? How many strengths
34.
are there? Yeah, 34 strengths. I wonder if people with particular strengths, a particular set of strengths, are drawn to coaching.
Yeah.
Versus people with different kind of strengths aren't, drawn to coaching. That'd be an interesting future conversation about like the profile, the strengths profile of the coaching industry,
Yeah. I have data on that in terms of how people build their model based on their strengths, because, like what's going to be sustaining and fulfilling, and like sustaining is really significant, because once you move past the idea of, I want to do this, you're going to need more, more than those sessions with people to be able to stay with it. And so, it's interesting. You could use DISC in a similar way. I use the 4 domains from Gallup because that's my training, but it's the same thought. I bet we'd have some great conversations.
Yeah, I know. Well, you and I could just talk forever. If you had to look out into the future for the industry, like what, let me use the premise prompt that we used earlier and see how you answer this. Like, when blank happens, the world will change. Let's just make it life coach specific. When blank happens in the coaching industry, the world will change.
Oh, that's so good.
I'm sorry if I stumped you.
No, it's not. I'm not stumped, but it's like in my heart space. Like if I just go super deep for a second on that.
Yeah.
When we heal our families in the life coach industry, everything will change.
Wow. I always love what people answer that with, because it always just gives like a, right. Wow. I love that. So good. Yeah. So good. Well, this was super fun, Kate. Like I said, we could talk forever, but I appreciate your time, and thank you for hanging out with me here in our inaugural episode, in our first season or lab called around leadership. I think our industry needs more conversations like this. I think we need more high-minded, like wrestling with the way it is, what we want to create, and then what's in between those two things. And I appreciate what you stand for and the work that the change you're being, in the world for that. And I'm so glad that I know you.
You too.
Thanks for hanging out.
Inviting me. Yeah.
If people want to learn more about what you're doing in your important work in the world, where can these coaches go to find out more?
You can visit me on Instagram at kate.pintor. Go to my website, katepintor.com, and send me a DM. I answer them.
Nice. Yeah. What?
I know. It's actually me.
Does it put me into a funnel immediately? That's what I want to know.
There is no funnel. I don't send emails, although my business coach is like, you are not writing emails. I'm like,
that's hilarious.
I know.
I love it. So good, Kate. Thank you for hanging out with me here. And until next time we get to chat, be well.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.
Well, that's it, gang. Thanks for listening to this episode of Life Coach Labs. Before I let you go, I want to invite you to 2 things. 1, there is a companion Facebook group to this show called Life Coach Labs. Go to Facebook and search Life Coach Labs. You can see it here on the screen. If I scroll through, this is a companion group to the show because it gives me a chance to get to know you. I want to know you as much as you listen to me and my guests. I want to know you. I want to hear about your important work. I want to support you. So please head over to Facebook and join the free Life Coach Labs Facebook group. Number 2, let's jump over to the next window here. If you are looking to create recurring revenue in as little as 4 hours a week, I have documented my community model, right? How do you do community? How do you build a membership model for your coaching that incubates the people you want to serve and do it in as little as 4 hours a week? You can head over to lifecoachlabs.com/model. You can see it right here on the screen, lifecoachlabs.com/model, and learn more about how to create recurring revenue in as little as 4 hours a week. Thanks for hanging out with me in this episode. And until next time, be well.